Good evening, everybody. Please feel free to stand and stretch and also let's look around. Get around at our fellow mates, meditation mates. That's another way of saying it. The jargon is yogis, our fellow yogis. Yeah. Hey. Good to see you all there. Thank you for muting. I don't know what happened. Okay. We're going to have the first talk of the year. Welcome. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. Let's take a breath in this new year together. Nice. Cool. So tonight I want to talk about resolutions. In fact, the Buddha talked about resolutions. He called them intentions. And they're very, very prominent part of the whole practice. It turns out that our thoughts have something to do with our behavior. Who didn't know that? How about everything to do with our behavior? Okay. So some people are, it amazes me that when people say they don't make resolutions, I'm like, how do you do that? I was a child when I started making resolutions. But I want to look at kind of the whole practice of kind of making it clear in our minds what we really value and what's important to us. And the beauty of, having a new year, it kind of feels like a fresh start, is we can really pause and reflect, and that's practice. That's practice. And see, the way I'm showing up in my life, is it what I value? Am I living my real values? Or am I in lots of habits? And how can I affect those? So resolutions, goals, or aspirations, intentions, it turns out we're already behaving based on our intentions. And a lot of the intentions that we behave from, we don't even know we're not aware of them. They're unexamined. So we're going to talk about taking a closer look at what motivates our behavior. So the resolutions aren't so unlike the second step. It's the second step of the Noble Path. It's called right intention. It follows from right view or right understanding. These two make up the wisdom part of the path. And each path factor paves the way for the next. And they also all work together simultaneously. So they're kind of like coils of a cable. They're all intertwined to make one cable. So as we get our views, about the nature of life, the nature of what it is to be a person, that really part of life, it's essential in life that we can't avoid the difficulties. And it's not personal. It's just how it is. We're all in the same boat. This gives way, when we have this understanding, then we have right intention. And there's 3 parts to right intention that we'll get into. Briefly, it's, I'm going to say the kind of the mundane translation: letting go, goodwill, or metta, and compassion. And I'll give you the more common translations later in the talk. So this gives way to the ethical practice, practices, which is right speech, right action, and right how we live how we make our living, how we support ourselves, right livelihood, flows right from intention, how we show up in the world. And this gives way to our mind training practices, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. And I'm going to share a quote from the Buddha that when our intentions are right, are skillful, wholesome, the Buddha wrote that when he discovered this, he entered immediately into the first jhana, so the first deeper state of concentration. So that's the connection between intention and concentration, and then later, deeper states. And then we're back to wisdom. So I write here, and I don't know if I believe what I wrote, but I did write. New Year's resolutions aren't so unlike the second step on the Eightfold Path. But I don't really believe that. I mean, they are quite different because they're motivated in a different way. And what I've come to understand is that I can, and I'm doing a lot of I making, aren't I? Me. It flows from years of practice that your motivations start to change and how you resolve. Another translation for right intention is right resolve. So they both ask us to pause and reflect. Are we living our values? Of course, right intention isn't about like once a year. It's the rest of your life. It's like how you live your life. So guided by our intentions, our behavior flows. So the Dhammapada is the teachings of the Buddha. There's short phrases, short teachings. The very first and second of the Dhammapada are all mental states are mind-made. If one speaks or acts with a defiled mind, suffering follows one, as the wheel follows the ox. One speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows, as one's shadow. So we're always guided by our views, and it's good to stop and examine. Are they rooted in wanting, in greed or aversion? I want this year to be like this. I want to be like this. I want to look like this. Or aversion, I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want, and delusion, I'm going to do this, this, and that. I mean, I was big on that one. And so I always had to go, do you think you can do that? I go, yeah, I can do that. 2 weeks in, I can't do that. So our capitalist culture encourages us to strive with greed. More, better, sexier, happier. Also to be healthier and kinder, more forgiving. So they can be wholesome or unwholesome. So the Buddha in the Majjhima Nikaya 19, he talks about how whatever one frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of her mind. Okay? What we think and ponder upon becomes the inclination, becomes the way. And so the Buddha outlines intentions that offer different ways of living that bring inner peace and harmony to ourselves, based on non-greed and non-aversion and non-delusion. And the difference really is worldly and unworldly goals. That's kind of the terminology. Worldly, kind of more focused on me and mine and how I'm looking and showing up, and non-worldly, kind of the common freedoms for all of us. So I looked up the most common New Year's resolutions, so we'd all kind of be on the same page. They consistently center on health and fitness, exercising more, eating healthier, losing weight, and finances, saving money, spending less, with goals like being happier, spending more time with family, learning new skills, improving mental health, and reducing screen time also appear frequently across surveys. These popular goals focus on self-improvement in physical well-being, money management, personal development, and work-life balance, though many resolutions are often abandoned by February. That's what it says. But I just want to say many of the worldly resolutions really feed us as meditators and people on the path, because like things like dryuary, people try out a month of not drinking, and I know several people who said that was better, and really changed their behavior. So why don't they succeed so much, and should we abandon doing them? My husband came across something he shared with me that I thought was, it's one thing, it came across like this. I'm opening a gym called Resolutions. It will have exercise equipment for the first 2 weeks, and then it turns into a wine bar for the rest of the year. So that's like really, the extreme of failure. Planning for failure. So when we look at the motivations behind the typical resolutions, we find greed, aversion, and delusion. Greed for what we want, or aversion for how we are now and how we need to be better. And delusion about what actually brings us happiness. So this is the definition of suffering, of stress, is craving, is wanting, okay? So no wonder we stop. No wonder we give up, right? We're not good enough, kind of based on we're not good enough. And it's focused from the outside in. Learning from the Buddha a new way of approaching intentions. The Buddha's way is the path of practice. We practice. We practice, we sit, we assess how it feels in us after we've behaved certain ways, after we've shown up in certain ways. And it's wholesome. So it's about inner growth and development of healthy habits of relating to our life that lead to inner and outer harmony. So call them whatever you want to call them. They're important. They're an important guide to help us live our values. The Buddha's emphasis, again, is on practice and seeing, and that's how it's changed, and it's changed how I've approached my resolutions. I'm going to share some of that with you. I still want to be healthier, dryuary, more exercise, eat less, but my focus is on less on worldly goals and more on how I want to show up toward myself and people in my life. More loving kindness, more compassion. I get quiet every day and sit with the feeling tones of how I'm relating. So that's what we learn, to be with our feelings, to sit, to stop, to feel, to notice the blame game in our minds, and to start taking responsibility. Awareness and experimentation. Remember, we all bring this up a lot, ehi passiko. Sit and see for yourself. Look at your mind, look at your heart. It's a powerful powerful motivator. Sitting with regret is hard. Is not fun. It's not hard. It's not pleasant. Or remorse. So I have a story. I have a son who, you know, you always have one that you worry more about. And so he, I'm going to tell you the story. I was worried about his health. I want him to be healthier. And so he announced over the holidays, I'm going to go out for a run. And he went out for a run, and he got back, and he wasn't sweaty. And I didn't think about it. I just said, you went for a run, but you're not sweating. And it was a dagger to him. You know, he had done this. He had gone, you know, he had made this effort. And I said, well, you don't kind of look like you have, you know. And I was mortified that came out of my mouth. I really was, that it hurt me when I saw him feel hurt. I just wasn't thinking, I just said it, you know. And so that changed, that really, I sat with that for quite a while. I asked immediately, I said, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean it, you know. And huge, that was a big factor in how I ended up with the resolution that I did, and I'll share it in a moment. So that's how we do this practice, isn't it? We own our shortcomings. And okay, here's a quote by Leonard Cohen that I enjoy. It's kind of reminding us to, we're not going to be perfect. We're just not going to be perfect. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So of all the intentions that one could name, the Buddha raises 3. And I'll speak about them again. The first one's called renunciation. Doesn't that sound fun? Really, what it means is it's really it's about sensual pleasures. Okay, it's really about this constant striving and grasping for pleasure through the senses, and the thought is another sense in this cosmology. So there's nothing wrong with enjoying pleasant tastes, pleasant sights, pleasant sounds, but when we're trying to seek that as the way to live a happy life, we're gonna suffer. We're not gonna find it, because as soon as we get our first striving, what we've striven for, we want the next thing. Okay, that was good. Now I want that. Now I want that. Now I want that. So really, he's saying that's not the way. So, more modern translation is letting go. You notice that striving and wanting, and you go, okay, that's not. I'm going to enjoy it, but it's going to be over, and it's okay. And soon we start to calm that deep craving, and then we have to do it again and again. Non-harming. So really just, it's really non-cruelty, it's compassion. So we want to not harm ourselves, we don't want to harm anyone else. And when we do, it hurts us. When we see that we've hurt someone, it hurts us. We're hurt. So as we strive for compassion, it begins with us. We begin to see how we deserve compassion. Life is hard. We're all subject to illness, aging, and death. We're all subject to all kinds of, difficulties. Life's difficult. So we start to cultivate that for ourselves and others. And then metta, loving kindness. as we're kinder and more loving toward ourselves, it translates. That's the inclination of our mind, right? So as our intention goes, so goes our actions on the path and every day. So when I was thinking about, in fact, we did the walking through the holidays on the path, the Dharmic path, on the path of the Dharma. So in that retreat that we did in November, I started to have a sense of this resolve. And it's basically this idea that, you know, when I walk in a room or when I enter a conversation with someone, I want them to feel safe. When someone approaches me, when I come into a room, I want to feel safe. We know what it feels like to be with people who we feel like we have to be on our guard. We have to sort of, you know, I'm sure my son knows. He can tell you about it. Okay. But to have a presence that brings just palpable sense of kindness and safety, that's my resolve. And that came sort of an image. It was an image that came in my mind. And that's kind of very common feeling when you're with monks, when you're with monastics. There's a sense of feeling very, very safe. That you know. So maybe because they were just here too, that affected me too. And it's sort of become my North Star. So I worked with it through the holidays. I've been working with it, and it's been really strong. And because it's an image, it's really easy to access. It's not like words or, you know, it's just like walking in a room, being with people. It's just right there. It's check with me 6 months or in a month to ask me if I'm still. Okay, so I do want to end with a little poem that my sister-in-law, who is an Episcopal priest, shared with us. Happy New Year to you all. It's her New Year's prayer. Coming now to the end of the year, I'm trying to learn not to do things from fear. I'm not alone searching for more. That's why we shop when life's a bore. But maybe tonight, contentment could be a New Year possibility. So thank you so much for listening.